Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Chicago. My name is the Reverend Teri Schwartz, Senior Co-Minister. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but rather our shared values and the mission to grow our souls and to heal the world. Whether you are joining us online for the first time or you've worshiped with us for decades in person, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. No matter how much money is in your pocket, no matter if you have a PhD, a GED, or no degree, you are welcome here. We are a people of many races and beliefs. We are a people of many genders and sexual orientations. All of you is sacred. All of you is welcome. You belong here. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, we must distance ourselves physically, but we can stay connected. Like, comment, and share here on YouTube, explore the library of videos on this channel, and follow us on Facebook, and sign up for the weekly email from the church office. That's officed at FirstU Chicago, FIRST, the letter U, Chicago.org. Throughout today's service, you can interact with one another through the comment section. Simply log into your YouTube account or create a new one, and then you can leave comments, reactions, and share prayer requests. This summer, we are delighted to partner with ministers from around Chicago as a preaching collective, and I am grateful for everyone who has worked together to create this service. Today's service features our very own Monica Kling-Garcia, ministerial intern here at First Unitarian Church of Chicago. Come, let us worship.
Friends, it's so good to be back with you again. Even virtually across the screen, it's good to be together. These months of summer have been a time for Teri and I to recharge a little bit, to rest a little bit. I hope some measure of that has been the case for you as well, and to think and plan together about this year ahead. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had the very good fortune to spend some time up in far northern Wisconsin, and we went horseback riding, among other things. Socially distanced, the horses kept 6 feet apart. I am not a horse person. I'm not a horse rider. So I climbed up on this thing, this very, very large animal, and I climbed onto it, and I got on its back, and I gripped my whole self down on top of it. I tried to lock on to this horse, to hold it as tightly as I could, so that no matter where it went, I would be like one with the horse and not move even a little bit. That turns out to be a terrible strategy for riding a horse, because every little motion that the horse makes is just going to whack itself directly into your entire body. It is a deeply uncomfortable thing to attempt to ride a horse that way. Luckily, I had some good coaching, and the gentleman who was taking us out for the ride said, "Now you gotta loosen, you gotta stand up, you gotta put your weight into the stirrups, you gotta take your hands off the pommel, off the front of the saddle. Take your hands off, straighten up, put your shoulders above your hips, and move as the horse moves." He said, "Watch the right shoulder of this animal that's right in front of you. And as it moves, you start to move with it, up and down, up and down." That makes a world of difference. I had to loosen. I couldn't stay on this horse riding it and try to stay exactly still and entirely in control. I needed to move with this animal instead of trying to fight against it. And that is a whole different kind of effort. It was no less work to ride that way. And I was sore the next day from the effort of standing up and moving and working with this horse. But that was a good kind of exhaustion. That's the exhaustion comes from learning a new thing instead of fighting against something. You sleep well with that sort of exhaustion. That physical work, learning how to stay loose above a moving surface of your life, learning how to move with the things that act on you instead of try and stay still. That's work that we do every single day of our lives. Not just during pandemic times, not just during uncertain times when we try and figure out what's even coming next. All the time, this is the work we do. You look at those tall trees out there, they don't stand perfectly unmoving. They move, they're in constant motion. They don't try and fight the wind, they move with it. That's our work too, and that's what I light our chalice for this morning. Light our chalice this morning for the spirit of working with all those forces that act against us. I light our chalice this morning in a spirit of not trying to remain rigid and inflexible when the world demands that we change. I light our chalice this morning to be a people of growth, a people of stability that only comes from being able to be in motion. I light our chalice this morning for the good exhaustion that comes, the weariness that follows, new experience, new growth, working with the world instead of against it. I light our chalice this morning. Welcome.
I invite you now to join in the reciting of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I invite you now to greet one another warmly in the chat box of friendship.
Friends, will you join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation to breathe deep the breath of life and be here now? Our words for meditation this week are by the poet Dana Folds, called It Is Enough. It is enough right now to taste one moment of peace. Of course, I want more, but at least the door is open. It is enough to draw a conscious breath, to let my hands relax, fingers releasing their tight grasp on things outside my control. It is enough to shed a layer of stress, as if taking off a jacket or a pair of too tight shoes. Ease of being has to start somewhere. This breath is my first step. Will you take a breath with me? And another. God, Spirit of life and love, called by many names, known in so many different ways, experienced that love larger than ourselves. Our prayer this morning is to be a people of memory and hope, a people first called home to ourselves, to remember who we are in all our own complexity, to remember and to keep us safe from all the snares and toils and traps of our own self, all those things inside our own head that prevent us from showing up to each other. Our hope, our prayer this morning is to let go of secret shames and private guilts that keep us locked in here instead of looking outward. Our hope and our prayer this morning is to let go of the anger, the resentments that we carry with us, to arrive back into the world again, seeing and meeting each other face to face. Our hope and our prayer is to set ourselves down, to have enough ease of being, to show up for each other, to meet each other as we really are, not our caricatures each of the other, but to meet together as people, face to face, even through a screen. Our hope, our prayer this morning is to get out of our own heads and be together. Amen.
This summer, our family had the opportunity to renew our spirits and our bodies and our minds in the north woods of Wisconsin near the Canadian border. We stayed by a calm lake with more mosquitoes than I think there are stars in the sky, and air and trees that nourished us and renewed us. Around the lakefront at the place we were staying, there was a collection of kayaks, canoes, of stand-up paddle boards, of pedal boats, inner tubes, and some boats for it. And so we were down there many times a day. And I saw the stand-up paddleboard, and I knew that I had to do it because I hadn't attempted, this is the thing. I saw stand-up paddleboarding a few years prior and thought it looked really fun. And we had other itineraries for that trip and activities for the family. So it was easy to make an excuse, but what I really was is I was afraid of doing it and falling down. So I decided this was the time. I don't want to be that kind of person that is afraid of falling down. So also the stakes were a lot lower. There were not, dozens of really fit vacationers, just a few really young elementary age children and their parents like us. So I asked my daughter, who had figured it out, what to do, and she said, well, you get the paddleboard, you get on your knees, and then you stand up and you row. And okay. Now, I had this irrational fear of falling. I don't know how much is about my own embarrassment and pride, which I'm a little chagrined to admit. I don't know how much is just about the physical discomfort. I don't like being cold, and although it's August, it is northern Wisconsin, and the lake is still pretty chilly. But I decided it was now or never. So I got my paddleboard, and I got it right at the dock. And from the dock, the paddleboard was floating. So I kind of edged on, kind of did a little scoop like this. And I got my other knee, and I grabbed the oar, and I think my daughter gave me a push. So now I'm out there balancing on this board on moving water. They may say the lake is still, but when you're actually on it balancing with your own muscles, not still. Lots of movements. And so I slowly start to kneel. I'm feeling very victorious at this moment. I scope the situation to see if anyone's paying any particular interest. Thankfully, they're not. And I take my oar and I kind of move it a little bit, and I go to the other side. Now, with each movement, the whole thing kind of tips, which makes it feel pretty unsteady. And I decide now is the time that I try to stand up. This is not called sit-down paddleboard. It's not called kneeling paddleboard. It's called stand-up paddleboard. So I got one knee, and thanks to several orthopedic surgeons, I got up, held my balance, I got in a pose, and it reminded me of plank pose. If you know that pose in yoga, it's like a push-up position where it looks like you're just holding still, but all of your muscles are working. And so it looks like I'm just standing on this paddleboard. Every muscle that I think I've ever had and didn't know I had is holding tight to hold onto this board. And I'm trying to row. And the thing I discovered once I'm out there on the lake and standing up on this paddleboard is that I have the oar of a child, not an adult size oar. So I have to lean each time I'm going to paddle. And I stand up and then I lean. Now this was not part of the design because the leaning is just one step away from falling, which is something I really did not want to do. And so I do this for a while, and I'm wearing these exact rafting sandals and yoga clothes because they don't slip very much, and I thought I'd have better traction. And I have traction, I'm not going anywhere, have a few wobbles, and I decide let's end on a high note and make our way back to the dock and call it enough for the day. I did. I got there and I kind of hopped over, managed not to lose the paddleboard into the water,
And it's funny because I then found myself pretty sore and really sore in one spot on my leg, and I realized I had been so stiff trying to balance that I was actually injuring myself. I had no ease in any of that effort. I decided that I'd do a yoga class on Amazon Prime just to try to loosen up so I didn't get too stiff for the next day. So I got out my yoga mat. And one of the great pleasures of summer is being able to do this outside. And I go through the various postures because this is my spiritual practice and my physical practice. And the teacher leads the class, by which I mean this video of 6 people and then me watching, into some very standard poses and in a typical vinyasa style flow into an extended side angle. And here I was like, oh, I remember all of those micro movements on the paddleboard. I wasn't still, even if it looked like it. I'm constantly adjusting to stay balanced. And then she asked us, where can we find some ease? This doesn't have to be as hard as you can make it. What part of us can find ease and expansion while other parts work? And I thought about it. The trees that survived the storm 2 weeks ago in Chicago were the ones that could move and balance. They weren't rigid and stiff. It was so much changing around us all the time. That kind of flexibility and balance, the waters underneath us in changing situations, as well as the balance of effort and ease, will be critical in our lives as we move forward through this year. We look towards a new church year, a new school year, and here we are in the midst of this global pandemic with so many uncertainties that sometimes it's even hard to plan the week. And I find myself tempted to want to hold on tight and exert as much effort as I can, because even if it doesn't go well, then I know at least I tried my best. And here's the invitation. That may work for the short term, but we might injure ourselves. It doesn't work when waves start to come. What looks like stillness is actually dynamic balance, constantly readjusting, which is what our circumstances demand of us right now, but also of effort and ease. It's not about plowing forward, it's about moving through. And we can do that together. Where in your spiritual life, in your day-to-day life, or in your physical being, can you focus on one aspect of effort and then embrace one aspect of ease? Maybe it's stepping back from a commitment and one part, stepping forward another time. Maybe it's about taking care of one part of yourself for some time, like you carve out of the day or of the week, and move into ease. Ease doesn't just happen, it's an active exercise of restraint. Other activity and acceptance is something we seek out, nourish, and cultivate. Ease is not lack of challenge, it is about engagement and balance. And when we are in balance, we can be sustained for the long term and be sustained when the waters underneath us are moving, the waves come, when the world situation moves and changes in unpredictable and frightening ways, and our communities are challenged and our hearts broken. But there too, we are invited to search and be investigators for where there might be some ease and space, to mend our spirits and remembers that we may be of greater service to the world and experience joy and peace that we are birthright. May it be so. May you and all of us be blessed with the balance of effort and ease. together, but 6 feet apart. We're more isolated, except in our hearts. Stay strong, raise your spirit. Time surely will tell. Staying home with our families is what's keeping us well. Reach out with well wishes across social distance. Stay at home, stay at home. 'Cause we don't know how or how long this may take, or how many dear souls will succumb in its wake. Let us vow to be strong and stay firm in resolve to shelter in place so we can't infect all. We're stronger together than COVID-19. We'll ride out this pandemic and wait for the vaccine. We'll ride out this pandemic and wait for the vaccine. Stay at home, stay at home. Don't go out, do not roam. We're stronger together.
I want to extend sincere gratitude to the many hands who brought this worship service together. Colleagues, congregants, staff, musicians, those who manage our administration and finance so that we can pay the bills and keep worship services coming to you. There are many, many hands at many levels that create the church, that keep it vibrant, and that allow us to minister to one another and beyond our walls, in person, in worship, through service, social justice, and here in online worship. I ask that you consider giving to the church to continue our ministry. Everything here is fully self-supported by our members and friends, whether that's the electricity in the building, our Wi-Fi service, video editing software, or any of the other ministries and work of the church, whether that be mundane or spectacular, is all made possible by the generosity of our members and friends. I ask that you now give as generously as you are able, following the instructions on the screen. And may we, as the congregation and the church, be worthy of your gifts. Go forth in peace. Amen. And thank you.